14 at 5:30 p.m. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 1 of our new business, an action item regarding revised education specifications for Board of Ed offices. If I can have someone read the second motion that's on the memo in our folder.
Move that the Newington Board of Education approve the education specifications for the Board of Education's central offices at Newington Town Hall with redesign required.
In a second, by Dr. Braverman. I'll start discussion. So the reason why we're here is that the town council is meeting. The ed specs that we had passed for the Board of Ed offices, one of them indicated that if the space that we received was not what we believed to be adequate, that we would look to move one of the departments off-site. That was not met with enthusiasm by the council. They did not vote to pass that ed spec and asked us to come back and pass a different one. So if you'll look at the ed spec that's in there, the only way to tell the difference is to look at the footer at the bottom that says with redesign required. What you'll notice is that at the bottom of the second page, the last full paragraph, rather than saying an apartment would be moved off, it says if the amount of space is the 11,220 square feet, the Board of Ed would then redesign the space to meet its needs. That's the only difference in the ed specs from the previous ones. Any questions about the language that's in there? Dr. Braverman?
Not the language, but is it possible to meet the needs with that amount of space?
Essentially, we're not going to have a choice. It's what it seems like, and we think that through a redesign we'll be able to capture more efficiency. Lou, is that kind of accurate?
Correct. We're going to do our best to make that work.
So in talking with some of the town councilors and the town manager and just met with them for about an hour, this is part of what I kind of like to think as a kind of a global resolution to everything involved in the town hall project. It seems like we have some good agreement on some of the major categories that have been points of discussion over the last few months. The three major ones being the amount of space afforded to the Board of Ed in the building, where our bus is going, and what's happening, the most recent one, what's happening with our transition academy. So here is kind of what the plan seems to be shaping up as, and this is one part of it where we are going to be responsible for a redesign of the smaller space. The other parts would be, we've talked with the town about the portion that is dirt right now, that the town would take both of the blacktop sections that are currently housing the smaller vehicles that we have and some of the smaller buses that's currently paved, and then 1/3 of the dirt, which would be a graveled surface in the next month or so, 1/3 of that space or so. That would allow what the town believes to be adequate space for laydown space and trailers for the construction, and we would allow them to use that property for that purpose during the construction. The other 2/3, the board would be responsible for the cost of graveling, and then what we would do is, this is kind of all just happening, but we believe it'll work, that we can move all of our large buses, potentially all of them, back to the Garfield Street site and be able to park them in a manner that works. We would likely have our smaller vehicles, the ones that can lock, potentially housed somewhere else at one of our schools, and there's a possibility that some of our spare buses may not fit in there, so there may be a section of a parking lot somewhere that is fenced off in a similar manner that we have at the high school, but we'd be able to alleviate the issues at the main high school parking lot, move the buses where they are. Obviously, we'll do everything we can to work with the town throughout the construction process, making sure that our buses aren't getting in the way of anyone, not holding up deliveries of anything, not causing any congestion, and doing anything, as any good neighbors would do. The other part is the transition academy. We've recently learned the trailers are not an option. The town manager and councilors had the idea of there is a grassy area to the, if you're facing the senior center, to the right towards Wells Main Street. There's a grassy area that would work to put up a building. It'd be something on a concrete slab. It would have heat, water. There would be the full bathroom. It'd be approximately the same size as we currently have in our transition academy. And we would be supporting the construction of that with the town. So we'd be using some money of our own to do that. It seems like it would work great. It's a little more expensive than the trailers that the town was going to be paying for originally. As we all know, there's no money in the bond for the relocation costs for the Human Capital Development and the Transition Academy. So this is different than a trailer. It's not a trailer. It potentially is a permanent building. And we believe, obviously we haven't had a chance to go and look at the site, but the facilities manager from the town believe it's going to work. It works for bus drop-off, and what we would do is take what we have currently in the Transition Academy, basically just lift it up, put it into the new space, which is roughly the same size, if not a touch bigger because of some of the service needs. And there we have a Transition Academy for the next couple of years until they're ready to pick up all the equipment and move it into the new town hall facility that will be built.
And what do we do with, oh, sorry.
Mrs. Gannon?
Okay, so it's not a long-term thing, it's a short-term thing?
The permanent transition academy is still in the plans. It is, we did confirm this evening with the town manager, it's not an ad alternate anymore that we had talked about a month ago or so. It's in the full proposal. We built out completely to spec. It will be
It's the right size.
it's the right size. That will be the permanent location in the new town hall.
And what happens to that building once we're done with it?
And so it will be town property, and the town will be able to figure out what they want to do with it, whether it's to house another. Really, I don't know if there's a plan for it after it's 2 years for the transition academy. I don't know. Mr. Sylvia?
But discussions as far as we're contributing X amount of funds towards this facility over the senior center?
Trying to work out exactly what that looks like. What is tough about the timing of all this is that we're at year end where Mr. Giacomonis has the ability potentially to cancel some POs, create new ones for encumbrances from our current funds. Potentially there's our public school CIP money that would be going into it, where we're canceling other things that we have been planning on doing to use those sources for. I don't have an exact dollar amount. One question that popped into my mind was how much was the town going to pay for the trailers? Originally, they don't know yet if there's a cancellation fee on it since it's not going to be used at all. What's the net value coming back? How much is that? How much is this building actually going to cost? The rough estimate is somewhere around $150, which is a little bit more than the trailer would have been. So if we're talking the magnitude of $60,000 to $90,000 that the board is expending, that's very possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tufel?
So this means that we're going to be spending money temporarily out of our funds?
That's correct. It's similar to the
With
temporary.
nothing upon completion, we don't own anything or get anything in return for spending our funds?
That is likely correct. That is similar to any money that we've expended to do move our human capital development furniture over into the new space that's happening now, to get the telephone and the electrical access that we need, all of that kind of stuff in that space. That's just a sunk cost and part of the move from the current town hall to off-site to back to the new town hall. Unfortunately, those are just not funds that were in the bond. Mr. Tufel?
As far as the spill site area,
Yes.
we are going to take a portion of that to bring our buses back here, supposedly,
Correct. That would be
and
the
we
plan.
may end up not keeping them there either, correct?
And so the town is still very interested in finding a long-term place to put the buses.
This was discussed a while back.
It sure was, and that is still the plan, to not have them there permanently. And as we've all said, we don't care where they are permanently as long as it's safe, lighted, yada yada. And that's something that we'll have to explore further. We'll have about 2 years to make a long-term plan.
So what I'm getting at is that we're gonna be ended up spending money over there with possibility of no return over there either.
So no matter what, money will need to be expended there because we're a foot under level surface. So no matter what, money will have to get expended there, and that's really what I consider part of getting it back to what it was before the spill. So, you know, that's just something that's going to happen no matter what. At least we'll be able to put our buses back there during construction and not having the high school disrupting things. Mrs. Guy?
So where is the money coming from?
That's my question.
Mr. Giacomo, can you explain that better than me?
No.
Someone's trying to let go.
Money for, the money to address the different elements of this, the money to partially support the Transition Academy, the money for the restoration of the site, and there were also two other elements that were part of it. We're setting up provisions for long-term FF&E costs and design costs.
Long-term what?
Furniture, fixture, and equipment for the new spaces, for the new area of our, what we will be occupying. All of that will come out of the operating budget this year, either as a direct purchase order to vendors, or it will be rolled into the non-lapsing fund to be able to set aside that money and be able to use it in the appropriate way at the appropriate time.
And so what are you doing to be able to have that money available for it?
A number of our projects are June, July starts for the maintenance activities at school districts because we have to wait until school's out. So we just, you know, I have a number of them that are basically sitting on the pending sheet right now that, you know, either they get a thumbs up and go tomorrow or they don't go. So I just will be mixing and matching the projects to match what the financial needs are to support this. So maintenance of buildings, some roof work, parking lot repairs are kind of at the top of the list. Some furniture, some technology could be part of it.
And so is it possible that many of those things will then get POs from next year's operating budget to go ahead? Anything that you deem serious and something that has to happen?
If it must happen for the first day of school, yes, we could roll it into a purchase order for next year. But those that we have some discretion on the timing, where we would just defer the maintenance for a year, is probably what will happen, and then it'll be up for, to be done in June of 2019.
Mrs. Guy?
I have some concerns about deferring maintenance again. Also, this is the fully finished floor space. Are we buying all new furniture for the new building?
I don't know yet. That will be based on what the redesign allows us to do. If our furniture becomes too large for the space available, furniture will have to be downsized. I don't have an answer to that yet.
Are all of the departments responsible for furnishing their spaces out of their operating budget?
On the town side?
Yeah.
Or I have no idea what their plan is. Just on our side, I know that we would have to address it because there's no provision in the project budget for FF&E at this time.
Can we get a nod? Is that, so the town is responsible, each of their departments, if they need new furniture, is going to be,
The town is responsible for their furniture under the town budget.
so there's no money in the bond for new furniture for any department. It's very, very small. It's not enough to do.
No, I'm asking though, if every department has to take it out of their operating budget to purchase those items.
It would be over,
It's got to come out of some
Town operating
but
budget, yeah, is what you're saying.
somehow the town is going to have to pay for their furniture out of their funds, just like we'll have to pay for ours out of ours, evidently.
And then are we paying for the redesign also?
Correct.
How much is that going to be?
I would guess somewhere between 25 and 50,000.
This is adding up.
I don't have a number to share with you, just speculating.
Mrs. Jones?
I have concerns like my neighbor here. What is this going to do, in your opinion, and I know it's only speculation, to our operating budget? Like, how is this going to affect our children? And I know that we have to do it, and I know that we're getting a new town hall and that we have to move forward, but
It will not affect our supplies, it will not affect our programming, it will not affect the amount of teachers we have.
Okay.
Essentially, the way that I conceptualize what's going to happen in order to make that money available is things that we were going to say okay to tomorrow will be canceled. Anything that's necessary will essentially get a new purchase order July 1st, and we have to go ahead. It'll just out of a different budget year. It potentially has some effect, because obviously that we will be expending a sum of money, could potentially reach $150,000 or $200,000 potentially. That will have some effect on how much we can do maintenance-wise, but we have to remember that we are expecting possibly around $1 million back or more from the state grant when it comes in, and that is money that will go into our public school CIP accounts, which will be able to then be used to make up for that money. So essentially, we'd be paying in advance for money that's coming back in. Mrs. Gallen.
So some of these expenses will not be for the next couple of years.
So like any furnishing cost would not be until the project is nearing completion, that's correct. So that may not be something that we're setting aside money right now for, it may be something that we're setting aside public school CIP money for as we go forward over the next year.
I guess my concerns were, just like Danielle said, going forward, the budgets have been so tight these last few years that I get worried about these things because I want to make sure, and I know that when you guys looked at this, that's your thought too, but it's a lot of money and we've been really, things have been really tight, so it makes me worried.
Mr. Jackmans?
Right. To address your concern, my intent is to try to take all of it and encumber it or roll it to the non-lapsing fund as of this June 30th. So then all of these issues come in just our rearview mirror, that we never have to worry about it going forward on our operating budget and any impact on anything, other than the few possible items that roll into next year at the start. But I would think that would be less than half of whatever we do. I think I can manage most of it, if not all of it, and be able to really insulate next year's budget where, operations for the benefit of the kids will happen if they should.
Mr. Assault?
I had the same concerns that Ms. Guyona said. My other question was the security at Wallace. Now, I'm assuming that won't be affected with this money that we've...
No, that will occur as
planned.
Yeah.
Very good.
So there are improvements that are going to be made this summer. Okay. Mrs. King?
I'm sorry, can you just go back into the list of things that we're funding? We're funding the Transition Academy, the site restoration for where the buses are, the long-term furniture replacement, the redesign of the plan. Is that, did I miss something?
No, that's it.
Okay. And then I too am definitely concerned about us yet again deferring maintenance because we've been doing it for years, hence why the town hall needs renovations because they've deferred that for years. And now we're doing that to our school buildings. Real problem.
I certainly share your concerns. I am recommending that this is something we do. As a global thing, it's not everything that we want. It's certainly not everything the town wants, and they're going to have their chance at 6:30 to tell us how much they don't want it. And hopefully they'll still, move forward, and then we would likely enter an MOU with them for the outstanding issues outside of the ed specs, just so that it's in writing and no one gets confused 6 or 9 months or 12 months from now. The reason why I'm recommending it to all of you is because we've been stuck on all of these issues for a very long time. We're expecting money to come back from the state grant, hopefully any day. No one seems to have great timing knowledge on that. We're paying a little bit out of that to move all of these things forward, and we're hopefully reaching an agreement on both sides that moves everyone forward. They don't want us to do a redesign of the third floor. They don't want us to have our buses back at all. But that's the give and take of this. And then we're working together on the Transition Academy, which no one foresaw that being such a big issue. So I am recommending it strongly. I think that this is as good as we have had a discussion with the town in the last year or two. So I think it's important to do. Mrs. Guyon?
So the town is going to work with us to find a long-term bus solution, allegedly?
Correct. That is their very high hopes, is to get the buses out of Garfield Street forever. And potentially with the highway department somewhere else. That's something that's on their agenda. Mr. Sylvia?
I'm with you. I agree with this, the language that I've read in the redesign, and I have no issue in supporting that.
Mr. Tufeld?
How do we stand, Lou, as far as the final total on the spill area?
On the costs,
Yeah.
the last
And how
time,
much do we owe, or still?
as of right now, the incurred costs are somewhere around $2.5 million. We've received $1 million in insurance proceeds, and we have $1.5 million coming back. In the interim, we spent about $1 million out of the board CIP account, and the town, with its partial cancellation of the John Wallace project, took $500,000 and funded it there. So as of right now, I'm even on a budgetary basis, and all of the invoices are paid as of right now that I have. Going into the future, you still have some of the restoration costs for the site, and the gravel and the paving over the next few years for that. And by having $1.5 million, where a substantial portion of that is going to come back to the Board of Ed, the benefit of the CIP account, we're really just providing an advance to the project at this point. And we will come out of this hole, as obviously we've had, the town has had the loss from the spill without being a little bit more than 1.5 in the end. But essentially we're trying to put all of it in the rearview mirror as of tomorrow for financial purposes.
Is there funds going to be available to look off property here for a site to store our buses?
Well, our preliminary plan is to get as many of our full-size buses stored here, the 40-footers. So all of these small buses will be the ones, and the small vehicles will be the ones that will scatter based on how we can put together the best plan. So, for example, the security cruisers, instead of them being stored here, they'll probably be stored at the schools that the security officers work at. Our maintenance vehicles we would put down at John Wallace, because that's where the maintenance shop is. And we'll take measures of that type to basically dissipate the fleet and be able to provide as much relief here on Garfield Street as possible. So really the full intent is big buses here, first and foremost, and as many of the specialty buses in the existing garage.
And that way, logistically, we have one site again for our bus operation, which is key for our transportation department to function efficiently.
But they want us off the site.
As a permanent measure, not as an August 1st measure. And if and when that happens, I speak for all of us, we will gladly move anywhere, because our whole operation will move to one location.
But we're spending double the money, because we got to
But
develop
we're
that.
not spending any money right now that wouldn't be spent no matter what. The site has to return to level, and that's all that's going to be happening. So we're putting gravel, we would be putting gravel in there. It just has to happen to get the surface back to level, and that happens no matter whether buses are there or not there. And that's just part of the restoration of the site.
We'd also have to do all the electrical and lighting.
Yes.
We would have to do the electrical, it's not
that significant.
It's not significant. Mr. Sylvia. And Mr. Bissell, I'd be remiss if I said you jumped in line by just speaking.
I'm sorry. Apologize.
Mr. Sylvia was patiently waiting finally.
Well, being a poker player and all that, the only thing that I would like to suggest, and since they're in the audience, is that I would like for us to reinforce the request for the Anna Reynolds Building Committee so we can get going on that one. I'm not being subtle here. I'm being as persuasive as I can be.
I've got to tell you that moving forward in this fashion with agreement with the town, I think moves everyone's agenda forward. And I keep being told Anna Reynolds is next, so once we have a solution on this, it is my expectation that that is next on their agenda, and we did send them a motion to look at that again.
I did.
Formally.
I understand. I'm just being redundant. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the topic, Dr. Braverman?
So Lou, we're going to get $1 million from Prudential and then $1.5 million from where?
State grant.
I'm sorry.
The state
grant.
And that's sort of guaranteed-ish?
They approved it.
They
the
approved
bonding
it.
commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Mrs. Kyle?
I appreciate all the work that you've put in, because I know that this is a lot. So thank you for all of your efforts.
You're welcome. Anything further? Okay. We will now vote on the motion, which I hope is supported by everyone, and signal to the town that we're ready to move forward on all fronts that we've discussed. And they will be able to do the same at their 6:30 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. And our phones are 860-665-8736. Young lady, if you could just state your name and address for the record, thank you.
Carol Annis, 30 Harding Avenue. I'm also the majority leader on the town council. I would like to thank you. This has been going around for a while, and I really appreciate you supporting this and all the questions you've been asking. I think they're very appropriate. If you're concerned about the Transition Academy, if you can find yourself room at the high school, that would be the optimal for us. So that's just something to throw out there. But we have come up with this resolution of possibly putting it over at the senior center with the stick building. And again, I'd just like to thank you for all your efforts that you have put towards this.
Thank you, Ms. Annis. Seeing no other public and no phone calls, we'll move on to item E, remarks by board members. Anyone with anything else? Mrs. Strauss?
I just have a quick statement of, as I sit here and I listen to everything, I learned what my dad finally taught me about buyer beware. I'm saddened that when we voted, and I voted yes, I was very pro the new town hall, that they didn't take all of these things into consideration. So I'm very saddened that I was misinformed or manipulated as a taxpayer. So I hope that we can move forward in the best interest of our kids, and remember that when we say it's going to cost us, it's costing the town. It's costing not just the Board of Ed, but it's costing all of us. So I hope that the town council and the people of our town remember that when we talk like this. Thank you.
Mr. Vasella?
Again, I'm going to back right off of Ms. Guyon there to thank you for the hard work that's gone into this. It's, I know the hours, I know the time, and I do appreciate it. I think the town really needs to realize the effort that us 9 members do here out on the table. So thank you very much.
Mrs. Sam?
I too, Danielle, I agree with you on that. I do think one of the things that kind of gets me uncomfortable is when we're saying Board of Ed, town council monies. This is the entire town of Newington. So that split, I really want people to understand it's town money. We have one of those departments in there. So, and I really do wish that we could get rid of that split that I feel like we always have about that. And Josh, I know you spend endless hours on trying to get things, these things hashed out, and surely we thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Sam. Mr. Sylvia?
Well, first I want to reiterate what Emily and Paul and all of others says. Thank you very much. You have done a very a lot of hard work, and I for one am personally appreciative of it. But I also have a second thank you, all right, which is to Ms. Baraka, and I appreciate your willingness to step up and assist us in our transition. So it's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
I go along with all my fellow board members. Appreciate everything you've done so far, Josh. I agree that we are here representing the taxpayers in town, and as you heard earlier, I don't mind spending money as long as we don't have to spend it twice. And if we have to develop a site, let's develop it, but let's make a site one-time investment, not 3 or 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tufel. Anyone else? Okay. I want to say I agree. I agree. Yeah, and I rue the fact that I didn't involve myself in the iterations of the building committee. I just didn't spend the time. So I'm learning new things every day about the project, what was actually in or not in the bond, how it actually works. And I didn't personally take the time. So
It wasn't your role.
I'm not saying that it was or wasn't my role to do it, but personally, I don't like when people get upset about things that they could have had knowledge or opportunity to do, and I never took the time to inform myself, as many of us didn't. So, that's an opportunity lost, but we're doing our best to work with the town as we move forward and make everything as good as it possibly can be, and doing everything we can to insulate, our operation from being impacted in any way, which, I think what we've done tonight and what we've discussed does that. So I thank everyone for their time. It's my expectation that we won't have another meeting for at least 24 hours at a minimum. Thank you all for making yourselves available, and we'll call for a motion to adjourn. By Dr. Braverman and a second by Mrs. Guy. We are adjourned at 6:01 p.m.
Are you kidding me?
You can read my mind.
She's texting me like 3 days ago. She's texting me like 3 days ago. She's texting me like 3 days ago.